The fall brings a lot of sports into play. So we've got basketball starting up, we've got baseball playoffs, and NFL's in full stride. You took a kind of an unusual career path and were exposed to some pretty impressive sports teams and working with great athletes. Tell me about that.
It's definitely been an interesting journey. It's been God's journey for sure. So if I reflect on where I started and how the path has gone, but I did my orthopedic surgery training in Cleveland, Ohio, and at the Cleveland Clinic, we were basically the head team physicians for every professional sports team in Cleveland, 3 colleges, and something like 35 high schools.
Wow.
And other things like the X Games. There's the Gravity Games then, it's the X Games now. Anything that came to town, we were in charge of looking after. And so that's where, very early in my career, I got a tremendous amount of exposure to that world. In fact, I had more exposure to that world than the world I'm currently in early on. And it was a lot of fun.
So what was it like to work with some of those athletes that at the peak of their sport? LeBron James, I guess. Did you work with LeBron?
Yeah, so LeBron was 19, if I remember right. He was in his second year in the league. He just left high school in Akron and signed with the Cavs. And I think about whether it's in Major League Baseball or LeBron and the Cavs, even some of the remarkable athletes in the Gravity Games or the X Games. The thing that strikes me the most is just how much they stand out from the crowd. And what's really remarkable in professional sports, when you have an athlete like LeBron James or Tiger Woods or Tom Brady or you name it, they're playing against other elite athletes, and they make them look like non-elite athletes.
Right.
It's just remarkable. I think the thing that I really learned from being able to be with those guys and watch them play and practice is the depth of talent. Even at that level, there's a talent gap between the top and the middle and the bottom dwellers in each of these leagues. And the same goes, the same is true for college and high school and Pee Wee. You get this range of talent and ability. And the same is true even in the professional ranks. It's remarkable.
Eventually you leave that world and then you go into orthopedic sports medicine, private practice and hospital. Talk about that adjustment a little bit.
One of the things that was great, I guess, about getting the opportunity to work in the professional level early on is that what the demands are on your time. And it really gave me an opportunity to compare and contrast what taking care of professional athletes is like compared to, say, college or high school or below. And the truth is, what became apparent to me very early is that the medicine is the same. The problems are the same.
Right.
An ACL tear and a professional athlete's an ACL tear, you fix it the same way. Fractures, shoulder problems. Baseball players get similar shoulder injuries and elbow injuries, whether they're in the professionals. And so it really just becomes a matter of what group of people do you feel most called to serve? And being in the professional ranks, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's an ego boost, bright lights, private jets, chartered everything.
Yeah.
Police escorts everywhere. It was super fun. But I always felt like it was more rewarding, and I was more called to take care of just the people in my community. And there's times that I miss all that.
Sure.
But at the time too, I was single at that time, and so when we were flying home from who knows where, at 3 a.m, and I had to be at work at 5 a.m, it wasn't a big deal that I was gone for 72 hours because no one missed me. You know what I mean? But it'd be different now that I have kids and a different kind of life. So it would have been very hard. It would be very hard to have the kind of the life that I have now and take care of athletes at that level. So.
But now you're able to take that experience that you've had on the professional level and you show up on the sidelines at a high school football game, for example. you give back to your community. What's that feel like?
So honestly, to me, there's nothing more rewarding than taking care of kids. And it's rewarding because they've got so much of their life ahead. They have their dreams, whether it be in sports or in, other activities. And so it's almost like the stakes are high in professional sports because of the money and the fame.
Right.
So I guess there's some high stakes there because they're in the media and whatnot, and they're important to community, they're important to cities. But there's nothing more important to a parent than their kid. And so it's similar high stakes. So I take that role very seriously. And it's a privilege. It's a true, to be trusted to take care of someone's child is a privilege that I don't take lightly.
Have you seen situations where parents maybe push too hard and the impact that it can have on a child athlete?
Yeah. How do you know, right? How does a parent know? Am I just pushing them to help them be their best, or am I beating them down?
Yeah.
And I think the best way to know is to check in with them and make sure you understand what the child's goals are. Like, what do you want out of soccer? What do you want out of baseball, for example, or football, you name it. And if you have in your heart all that you're focused on, you want a college scholarship, okay, fine. Well, then this is what it's going to take, and I'll help you get there. And you're going to need to be pushed. But if that's not what you're going for, we need to make sure that the parents' goals and the kids' goals are in alignment. And I think as long as they are, it's going to be okay.
So are there any lessons that you learned from professional athletes that you're able to take to your more local hometown athletes today, or even someone who isn't an athlete but they're just a young person that has an injury?
There's a lot of things, and when I have patients in my office, I often have the opportunity to share some of this. But one of those things is the importance of recovery time. A survey was done where they asked some of the top long-standing athletes, athletes that have been in their sport for a long time, like Tom Brady or Cristiano Ronaldo in soccer. And they asked, Tiger Woods or LeBron James, what is the secret in your mind? What is the secret to not only getting where you are, but staying where you are? The longevity. And it's interesting, they all said the same thing in an independent surveys. They said sleep, they sleep a ton, nutrition, they're very careful about what they put in their body, and recovery time. I see lots of athletes who could actually perform better if they actually did have a little recovery time, right? Then, but the mentality is keep going. I got to practice harder, more pitches, more throws, more serves in tennis or whatever. And it's difficult because you do need to do those things, but there is a point that if you go past it, you start tearing down.
Yeah.
And that's when the athlete, they kind of get frustrated because they're like, why can't I get past this point? How come I can't pitch faster, or how come I can't swim faster, or whatever? And I'm working out, I'm doing morning sessions, night sessions, weekend sessions. I never take a day off.
Yeah.
How is it that I'm not getting better? And my suggestion would be just consider that it just might be possible that you're overtraining.
Sure.
And you've gone beyond optimal, and at least try experimenting with a mental break, a physical break, not lazy couch potato necessarily, but just let that pitching arm have some time off. I mean, after all, do professional pitchers pitch every day?
No.
Of course they don't.
Right.
One in three, maybe?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Is it because their agent won't let them or something? No, it has nothing to do with that. They know that if they pitch every day, their season's going to be, they have one season in the majors and they're done, and they're in the OR. So, so this concept of recovery time is very, very important in the professional world, and I don't see it in the lower levels.
No, that makes sense. Elderly folks need orthopedics, probably not sports medicine as much, but what drew you to working with young people as a specialty?
I was an athlete. I like sports, and I had my own sports injuries, and so that was the number one thing that even drew me to this profession was my own experience.
Okay.
That's common for a lot of my colleagues too. And then when I was in training, I actually remember one of my most profound rotations was pediatric general surgery, which is abdominal surgery and chest surgery. And here I just remember being blown away. I would have this little baby or this little 2-year-old, and we'd be operating on them, and their vessels and their nerves and their intestines would be tiny. And I was just like, I just can't even believe what I'm seeing, and this is just overwhelming. And so I knew at that point that I just found it to be particularly challenging and particularly rewarding to that age group. In addition, I also like the problems. I like the problems that they get. I like fixing things in the OR, and I like these types of problems. I'm fascinated by the growth plate. It's a very big deal. Pediatric orthopedics is entirely different from adult orthopedics, and the way we treat fractures and many of the injuries, they get injured. Many cases they get injured in a different way or in different patterns. And even when those patterns are the same as adults, the treatment is often different.
Oh, that makes sense.
And then the treatment can differ based on age. A forearm fracture in a 4-year-old, we might treat differently than that same exact injury pattern in a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 14-year-old. So they're all pediatric, but you could have 4 different treatments for the exact same injury depending on age. So I don't know. It's challenging. It's fun. It's interesting. So it's just always felt like the right fit for me.
It's easy for me to see the passion that you have for what you do. And I know a lot of it's here, but I think more of it's here. So talk to me about your heart for healing.
Well, I can tell you, until I had my own injuries, I never even gave a thought to the medical profession, because at that time I thought people like me don't do things like that. I didn't have any medicine in my family, and so that was this whole career path was completely foreign. But at the end of the day, I'm 110% convinced that this is what God wanted me to do. When I had my injuries, I really thought my world was ending. Everything that mattered to me, everything I'd worked so hard for, and what I thought my future was, came to a crashing end very suddenly. But it totally changed my path. And then every step of the way, I just let God lead. And that's a large part the answer for how I started out working with professional athletes in Cleveland, ended up in Atlanta, and then eventually at Emory Adventist in Atlanta, and then AdventHealth in Calhoun. It's just been a path, and I get up every day and do the best I can, but I try my best to let Him lead.
So our brand promise is feel whole.
Yeah.
What does feel whole mean to you?
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think there's feel whole, which is a personal mantra, and then there's also a whole approach to patient care, which is more of the provider's responsibility. And I think feel whole to me means having your life in some kind of a balance, and it's never easy. It's never perfect. And quite honestly, I don't know that we ever have that balance exactly right. And even if we do, it's certainly fleeting. But that's okay. It's just so things don't get too far out of whack and our priorities don't get too far down the wrong path. And we're checking in with God and what He wants us to do. And the body wants to be healthy. It's us that can sometimes get in the way, with the decisions we make. So I think it's just it's a decision that we make, and we say, listen, I'm just gonna be very stingy about what goes in, and whether it's nutrition for sports, or I'm just going to decide not to smoke and vape, or I'm just going to decide I'm not going to, whatever bad choices. And I think that's how we're designed, and I think the payoff is that we feel whole, we feel great.
So you're young and healthy, and you've got a lot of career left in you. But when you fast forward and think about your legacy down the road, what do you want your legacy to be?
I think I would summarize it in a way that was said to me by one of my mentors. And they always used to tell us, treat every patient like they're the only one you have today, and that they're the last one you're ever going to see. So I think if I am remembered one day as someone who gave everything he had and left no stone unturned, and treated every patient as if they were my kid or my aunt or my parent, then I think that is the best I could do.
Absolutely. Thank you for what you do every day. Thank you for your time this afternoon. It's a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you very much, Garrett.